So this video is all about you looking at a range of factors that I'm going to talk about, and then try and apply that to your individual case, and then make an informed decision if going abroad in 2020 or committing to a study overseas plan in 2020 would make sense for you in your case. So here's the first factor you got to consider: living expenses. You all know that not going overseas, which anyway is not an option, but going online for you in an overseas university is actually going to be advantageous for you, because you're not going to spend money on your living costs. So would normally where you would spend about $1,200 or $1,400 a month for your overseas stay and for your living expenses overseas, you're not going to spend that money anymore if you choose to go online. So that's factor number one. Number 2 point is about the tuition fee. Many universities, well, most universities, if not all, are actually going to reduce their tuition fee. The program that would, for example, cost you $100,000 in normal times is probably going to cost you less, 10%, 20%, or 5%. So if that's good enough, then that's a factor for you to consider. The third factor is actually about plan B, and that's my favorite. Well, what I mean by plan B is nothing but you've been planning to go overseas, and you've decided that you're going to leave your job when you go to study overseas. Now, if you don't commit to an international degree or an overseas university, then what's your plan B? Like, do you have a job in your home country, or are you in a program, or are you just simply going to be happy with a gap year? So do you have a plan B? If you don't have a good plan B, then I think you should just stick to plan A and actually continue and commit to an online study in 2020. And then when the travel restrictions are lifted, you can then travel overseas. So that's the factor plan B that you got to evaluate very carefully. The fourth point is really about the refunds and the visa policies. So it's one thing that universities are going online in the first term, and in all probability you would obviously not need a visa to go online. So what happens if you go online, you commence your studies, and you've obviously paid your deposit, and then God forbid your visa gets refused? Is the university going to refund you partly, fully, or not at all? That's a factor you've got to consider. So in essence, try and find out what happens if such and such thing happens with your visa, and that's going to be crucial, that's going to be important for you. So that's the point number 4. The point number 5 is your post-study work visa. Many countries, for example Australia, has a post-study work visa of 2 years after you complete your study. But for that, you gotta meet a criteria of having stayed in Australia for 2 years. If you choose to go online, because the university is offering the program online, do you disqualify yourself for the post-study work visa? That's a very crucial factor. The information on that can only be available on government websites. As of now, many countries have actually not announced yet whether you still qualify for your PSW or you would disqualify because you've not done your study completely on campus. So that's a crucial factor you've got to consider. And the point number 6, that's the last one, but perhaps the most important one, is your financial position, your sponsors, your parents' financial position. So if you've set aside substantial funds to take care of your living cost or your study overseas, and you are depending mainly on your savings specially set aside for your education, then fair enough, you can still actually go overseas. But if you were depending on your income, your parents' income or your sponsor's income over the next 2 or 4 years, and that does form, let's say, 10% of the plan, I would say, hey, watch out. You've got to then understand that things are fluid. at the moment. You have no idea if you are going to get a job, part-time job, full-time job, as a normal student would, because of the changes all around you. And of course, likewise, it applies to your sponsor's job or sponsor's business. So be mindful that things have changed. So before committing to a $100,000 program or a $50,000 program, whatever, try and understand your financial position a little better and then take a decision. So I'm sure there are a lot of other factors which may be impacting you, or which you may be thinking of. So do write to me, send your comments in, send your questions in, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. Now, if you like the channel, if you like the content on the channel, do not forget to subscribe. And for now, stay safe, stay positive, and it's ciao from me.